Dum da da dum da 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 dum.
Drink a beer, everybody!
Hey folks, Dr. Tangent back with another beer short, trying to fill in the holes of what people might know and not know about the beer they're drinking. Today we're going to talk about hops. Everybody who is remotely familiar with beer has heard of hops, know that they have something to do. They're an ingredient of beer, but beyond that, a lot of people just don't know what they are all about. So, first off, what are they? They're green cone-shaped flowers, sort of like pine cones, but softer. They grow from a plant called the Humulus lupulus, which is a very aggressive growing vine. And there are glands inside these cones that contain a substance called lupulin. It's this lupulin that brewers are after. So, what do hops do? They give bitterness, aroma, and flavor to beer. They do this through the brewing process. Resins and essential oils are drawn out. That lupulin is extracted during the brewing process to lend its flavor, aroma, and bitterness to beer. Very, very good piece of information from the Sierra Nevada website. Puts it really nicely. So I'm going to read it verbatim. This is from the Sierra Nevada Brewing website. There are many varieties of hops, much like wine grapes, and each has unique uses in brewing. Some hops are excellent for bittering. Others have signature aromas and flavors that brewers mix and match like spices in the kitchen. It was that last bit that really kind of rung home for me and pulled it together nicely. All these different types of hops, different variety of hops, all have something a little bit different, and we're trying to create a beer that has a flavor profile that the brewer is thinking about, conceptualizing in their mind. They're going to select different hops to try to add to the beer to reach that final dish, so to speak. Now, if you drink beer much, drink craft beer, you may hear some terms that refer to a hopping process. If you watch some of my videos, you might hear me reference the hopping process. Traditionally, hops are added during the boil step. If you don't know the steps of the brewing process, watch my other beer short. I'll put a link to it somewhere up here about the brewing process. But traditionally, hops are added during the boil. Earlier in the boil, adding hops earlier in the boil gives more bitterness to the final product without getting into the chemistry of it. Adding hops later in the boil gives more of the aroma and flavor of the hops to the final beer while limiting the amount of bitterness that's extracted from that particular dose of hops. But there are other techniques, something called first wort hopping. This is where hops are added actually before the boil. This yields a rounder, softer, and smoother bitterness. You still get all the bitterness from the hops, but the perception of it is that it's a rounder, smoother, softer bitterness. There's also hop stand or whirlpool hops. These are hops that are added after the boil and typically once the wort has cooled to at least 175 degrees Fahrenheit. Uh, this extracts more flavor and aroma without adding any bitterness. Now, the difference between a hop stand and a whirlpool, you can kind of guess. A whirlpool is the worts actually spun in a way. It could be right in the chilling vessel, it could be in a separate vessel, a whirlpool vessel, it could be right in the boil kettle, but a whirlpool is set up. Whereas a hop stand, the hops are just added to the still wort. There's also dry hopping, which in this case, hops are added towards the end of or even after the fermentation process. Again, the goal here is to add more flavor and aroma from the hops to the beer without adding any bitterness. Some notable hop varieties, because you'll often in craft beer see a list, this beer has this hop in it or these hops in it. And oftentimes the names look nice, but we don't know what it means. But so a few notable hop varieties for IPAs: Cascade, which gives a pleasant, flowery, spicy citrus note, or Chinook is another popular hop. Mild to medium, heavy, spicy pine and grapefruit. There's Citra, which gives, as you can imagine from the name, a lot of citrus, lime, grapefruit, orange, and some mango notes. And then there's Mosaic, which gives a combination of mango, pine, and citrus notes. One of my episodes, you saw me refer to noble hops. Noble hops are the category name given to hops from continental Europe, especially Germany, that show up in a lot of more historical, older, old world beers. Things like Hallertau, which is a very mild, slightly flowery or spicy note. Pearl, which gives a moderately intense, hoppy, fruity, and a little spicy characteristics. And Saaz, Saaz, gives a mildly earthy and spicy characteristic to beers. There's also some notable English hops in English beers like bitters or pale ales, porters, things like that. Challenger is a fairly common UK style hop. It gives a mild to moderately spicy finish. There's Fuggle, which gives mildly hoppy and robust hop characteristics. Kent Golding, which is a very gentle, fragrant spice and citrus. Some even say maybe a little bit of mint notes to the final product. And one you don't hear a lot about, but it sounds interesting, and I personally might try it sometime. North Down, which gives a little bit of fruitiness and spiciness to the finished beer. Now, a little bit about the history of hops. The first recorded use of hops in brewing was in 8th century by Benedictine monks in a Bavarian abbey outside of Munich. Before this, beer was made with whatever spices the brewer had on hand or could get locally, spices and herbs. Often that would be heather, mugwort, stinging nettles. And this style of beverage was called Groot. This is a predecessor to the beer we know today. But they took a while to catch on. 12th century Christian mystic and naturalist Saint Hildegard of Bingen, while better known for her contributions to music, is believed to have written that hops were not very useful, that they made the soul of a man sad and weighed down his inner organs. And even 16th century British physician, author, and self appointed beer authority Andrew Boord claimed that hops made men fat and bloated. Couldn't possibly just be all the beer they were drinking, could it? Anyway, hops are here. Hops are good. You might have particular varieties of hops that you enjoy the beers of more than others, and that's cool. Everybody does. But let me know what you think. If you have any other questions about beer or the brewing process, drop them in the comments and I'll make another short. Thanks.